Good afternoon. Welcome to the Diesel Technology Forum's online press conference. Which states have the most high mileage cars? During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode. As a reminder, this event is being recorded. Shortly after the conclusion of this event, the recorded presentation and all the files will be available on the Diesel Technology Forum's website at dieselforum.org/top10. We do have time for questions at the end, but we encourage you to ask questions at any time during the presentation. To ask a question, you can submit the question via the chat Q&A box. Your questions won't be viewable by the other attendees, but we will address them at the end of the session. Our focus for today is new registration data on U.S. clean diesel and hybrid cars, SUVs, vans, and pickup trucks. We're also going to take a look at some of the trends for the future, including the number of clean diesel vehicle models predicted to come to market in the next several years. Just a quick word about who we are. The Diesel Technology Forum is a nonprofit educational association dedicated to raising awareness about the importance of diesel engines, fuel, and technology. Here's a quick look at some of our members who are the leaders in clean diesel technology, and they represent the three key elements of a modern clean diesel system: advanced technology engines, vehicles, and equipment, cleaner diesel fuel, and emissions control systems. I'd now like to turn the call over to your speaker for today, the Diesel Technology Forum's Executive Director, Alan Schaefer.
Great. Thank you very much, Kristen, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our virtual press conference. We are about to begin the discussion about today's findings, and let me start out with just a bit of background to frame this issue for everyone. I think everyone on this call recognizes that there are a growing number of fuel-efficient vehicle technology choices out there today, and we're finding that clean diesel is certainly one of those. The resurgence here in the U.S. of clean diesel cars began in earnest back in 2006 with the introduction of ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel, which enabled us to usher in a new generation of clean diesel engines and vehicles. We believe that over the last 8 years, consumers have increasingly warmed to clean diesel technology. It's proven fuel economy, spirited driving performance, and long-term value. And increasingly, clean diesel is emerging as an important option for manufacturers to provide a full range of vehicles to meet the future fuel economy requirements. In fact, the impact of clean diesel technology that's already out there is beginning to show up. Just last week, President Obama, in his all-of-the-above energy strategy document that was released and shown here on this slide, recognized that part of the fuel consumption reduction that has been seen in recent time is in part stemming to projected switching to diesel in the light-duty fleet. So the administration is already recognizing the impact of clean diesel technology in displacing some gasoline vehicles in the light-duty market. A word about the methodology for today's report. We commissioned Polk and Company to secure vehicle registration data for all 50 states covering the period of January 1st, 2013 through the end of 2013, that's December 31st. Our goal in this effort was to evaluate the trends in clean diesel and hybrid registrations nationwide and to look at demographic and other trends. Our analysis today that we're going to share with you covers a range of different vehicles and types and combinations thereof, and we also looked at the heavy-duty diesel pickup trucks, which are an option for consumers here as well. You'll find that our analysis generates quite a few top 10 lists, and we have a full range of these that you'll have access to at the conclusion of today's call, and we're going to share a few with you. We looked at various combinations, such as cars and SUVs, pickup trucks, all diesel vehicles. We also looked at the trend of the fastest growing, where we compared 2013 year-end data to 2012 year-end data to see which states have added the most new vehicle registrations in a particular diesel or hybrid category. We also this year developed a composite clean diesel and hybrid analysis, sort of reflecting what the trends are in states picking the most fuel-efficient vehicles. So let's start with a look at our findings, but before we do that, let me ask Kristen Gifford to share with us a poll question we'd like to get your feedback on.
Sure. Just a quick poll just to get your sense of your thoughts on the registration changes. how much do you believe registration have changed from the year 2010 to 2013 for diesel cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs? And your choices are no change, -5%, +5%, 15% growth, or 30% growth. And we'll give you your answer shortly.
Okay. Please, everyone, take a moment to cast your ballot there and give us your perspective about where you think the market is for diesel cars, trucks, and vans over that 3-year period. Of course, to share with you today's findings, we've developed a new infographic, which you're seeing here, and that we're going to fill in some of these slots in just a moment. So with that, let me move forward then, and we'll start at the top with some of the national registration trend findings. First of all, we looked at the total market shares for diesel and various categories of diesel trucks, cars, and SUVs, and also looked at hybrids here. Our first finding is that from 2010 through 2013, diesel car registrations increased by about 30% nationwide. And you can see the categories of registrations broken down here. We've got total diesel in the blue line at the top. The next line down is a sort of a turquoise color. That's diesel pickup trucks. The next line down is total hybrid vehicles, and then we have diesel SUVs and cars, and then finally diesel vans. So while diesel registrations were up 30%, hybrids were up 64%, and we will address that later in this presentation. And next, let's begin to look at the breakdowns of the different states and where the most favorite diesel drivers are these days. First off, with looking at the full scope of vehicles, we find that the West dominates with the highest percentage of diesel cars, SUVs, pickup trucks, and vans. That's Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho, followed by Alaska at number 4, the Dakotas at number 5 and 6, respectively, Oregon at number 7, Utah 8, New Mexico at number 9, and Colorado rounding out the top 10. And you can see the percent of total vehicle registrations in the middle, and that represents what number of total vehicles in the right-hand column. Now let's take a look at the fastest growing states for diesel cars, SUVs, pickup trucks, and vans during that 2012 to 2013. And here we find an interesting set of developments. First, North Dakota is the fastest growing overall state for registrations from this past year compared to 2012. Then we have the District of Columbia, Illinois, Delaware, Idaho, New Jersey, Ohio, South Dakota, Texas coming in at number 9, and Arizona at number 10. I would say that North Dakota, the percent increase there was 24.1% growth from 2012 to 2013. And in the District of Columbia, it was almost 16%. Illinois went up by 13.6%, Delaware up by 10%, and then the other states that roll out the list are up in the single digits of percentage gain, ranging from anywhere from 7.6 in Arizona on up to 8.55 in Idaho. So we can see we've got quite a mix of states that are adding more diesel registrations in that year period. Let's take a look at just diesel cars and SUVs now, not looking at pickup trucks. And here we find that the land of Lincoln, Illinois, is our leader in registrations, fastest growing registrations for clean diesel cars and SUVs. And you can see the bottom chart showing the actual percentages and the listing of the states on the left-hand side there as well. There's a tie for third between California and North Dakota. Both come in right about 11.35% increase. Let's pause here, and do we have the results of our polling question?
Yes, we do. The answer was 30%, which only 6 people answered correctly. Everyone else thought that there was only a growth percentage of 5%, so there has been significantly more growth than people anticipated.
Very interesting. Okay, thank you, Kristen. Let's move on then to look at our next comparison. Let's turn to diesel pickup trucks for a moment, and these have been quite a popular mainstay in the U.S. for a good number of years. And in the previous period that we've researched, we found that Texas and California lead the pack for the top 10 states for diesel pickup truck registrations. Other states falling in line include Florida, Washington, Colorado, Pennsylvania at number 6, Oregon number 7, North Carolina number 8, Georgia number 9, and Ohio number 10. Now let's take a look at the fastest growing states for diesel pickup registrations. So previously we just looked at the total registrations for 2013, and now we're looking at the difference between 2012 and 2013. And here we've got kind of an interesting finding. We have North Dakota coming in at number 1, but followed by Vermont, Illinois, Idaho, Delaware, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Massachusetts, Texas, and Rhode Island. And so we have half of this top 10 list, 5 of the top 10 states for fastest growing pickup truck sales, diesel pickup truck sales, are in the Northeast. Kind of an interesting finding, as most of the registrations for diesel pickup trucks are typically in the western states. So we know the Northeasterners are picking up more diesel pickup trucks than ever before. Okay, now we're going to look at a composite analysis here, and we actually have a poll question coming up. And let's see, Kristen, can you go ahead and launch that for us?
Sure. Just this is taking a look at the most fuel-efficient vehicles for both diesel and hybrid. So just to get a little guess from everybody, what states do you think are going to be the most fuel-efficient, taking a look at all of those data combined? So this would be diesel and hybrid vehicles combined.
Thank you. Take a moment to look at your options there and make your selection, and we'll come back to you very shortly with the results. So this year we also did a composite analysis, as Kristen has indicated, looking at the fuel-efficient vehicles for both clean diesels and hybrids. And our findings are these, that California, Texas, and Florida lead the number of registrations of fuel-efficient vehicles, and that is clean diesels and hybrids by our definition. I should have pointed out at the outset that our research did not look at electric vehicles, natural gas, other technologies due to their very low market shares, and focused instead on mainstream vehicles and the 2 most popular fuel-efficient categories of clean diesels and hybrids. So here California, Texas, and Florida hit the top 3, with Washington State, New York, Pennsylvania at number 6, Illinois coming in at number 7, North Carolina at 8, Georgia at number 9, and Ohio at number 10 in terms of the states with the highest registrations of fuel-efficient clean diesel vehicles and hybrids combined. Now let's take a look at the top 10 states that we just saw and show you how the shakeout takes place between the diesel totals and the hybrid totals in those states. And here, really the key is the top 3, and this is California is the only state where hybrids outnumber diesels in our survey findings here. And when we look at the total diesel penetrations, the thing we see switch is California and Florida go from 2 to 3, and they reverse their order when we look at the total of the composite there. So here you're seeing the penetrations on a numerical basis, and the national totals, I think, reflect at the bottom here. Over 7 million diesel cars, trucks, vans, SUVs, and pickup trucks registered, compared to just about 2.8 million hybrid vehicles. What are the factors that are driving the success of clean diesel cars that you've just seen? First of all, we have most notably a growing number of choices for consumers, and this will be a key factor in the future of diesel growth. Today, Our numbers of choices for consumers have been relatively limited, and we see that increasing quite dramatically. In 2013, there were 23 diesel car and SUV choices for consumers, but during that same time frame, there were more than twice as many. That was 50 choices of hybrids. The expectation, however, is that we see a growing number of choices for diesel options, particularly in the next couple of years, and that will help diesel market share grow even further. Another factor helping to grow diesel market share is the increasing availability of diesel fuel nationwide. And we have some recent, though unpublished, data from Integer Research that highlights the penetration of diesel fuel in Canada and the United States here on the left, with the overall average being about 55%. We've also seen some recent data from the Lundberg survey that noted that in some parts it's even higher than that, that 69%, for example, in the city of Houston. There are pockets of very high concentrations of diesel fueling stations, and by all accounts, we expect that to increase in the future. We have a complete set of locator tools on our website, as you can see here on the right, that you can get to immediately by scanning that QR code or going to the URL there on the bottom. So finally, I'd like to point out a few other key observations that support the case for clean diesel being a very important part of our energy future. Three leading authorities of energy forecasting have indicated that diesel is set to attain the #1 global transport fuel in the not too distant future. By 2020, ExxonMobil suggests that diesel will surpass gasoline as the #1 fuel. The World Energy Outlook predicts similar growth between now and 2035. Excuse me, and the President's own National Petroleum Council highlighted the powertrain of choice for diesel, in this case referencing heavy duty. But this, I think, provides a pretty strong indication about where we'll be in the future with clean diesel technology. So just a few wrap-up remarks here. We do see the increasing popularity of diesel all across the country. I think one of the most interesting things is that diesel has a very universal kind of appeal, that it is found in just about every state, everywhere, and the growth that we saw is in every single market, every single region. There's nothing specific about where diesels are popular in the U.S. They're everywhere. We've seen the President, as recently as last week, recognize the impacts that diesel vehicles are having in terms of fuel savings already in his own Sustainable Economic Growth Plan and all the above energy strategy. And of course, its importance as manufacturers move towards meeting the future clean air requirements and fuel economy requirements. Just in the year previous, in 2012, we did some analysis with Martech Research that provides a perspective that is particularly relevant today as we talk about reducing emissions from coal-fired power plants and the President's new climate change strategy. In our analysis found that the 2.9 million light-duty new clean diesels that were introduced from the period of 2005 through 2012 saved the American consumer, considerable amounts of emissions of CO2, gasoline, and crude oil, all equivalent to, as shown on this slide here, removing the annual emissions from 2.2 coal-fired power plants for a year. And that's 32,000 rail cars of coal going continuously from Boston to Philadelphia. So in terms of CO2 reduction strategies, the clean diesel vehicles that have been on the road are delivering those CO2 benefits today. Just a quick summary here. We have seen a 30% increase in diesel registrations over the 3-year period from 2010 to 2013. This is the second consecutive period of double-digit growth. And it comes at a time when the overall auto industry market grew just under 4%. Hybrid growth we identified at 64.5%. And you can see the final comparisons here on the right. And we showed you a select number of these, and other comparisons are also available on our website. And I believe we have the results of the last poll.
Yes, I believe everyone did know that it was California. That was no surprise that California had the most fuel-efficient vehicles. So that was the most voted for that category.
Okay, very good. Thank you, everyone, for that. And that concludes our presentation, and we are now prepared to answer any questions that that may arise. And let's see, I'm looking at those coming in here. Let's see, the question is from what percentage of total passenger cars registered were clean diesel, what percentage for hybrid, and what percentage combined? Okay, we'll have to, that's a question we'll have to probably get back to you on unless one of my colleagues, Steve Hansen, is on the line. I don't know if you have the answer to that one right at the tip of our fingers or not. We may have to pull that together from the spreadsheets, but these are available online as well. Another question coming in, will this PowerPoint be available? The answer to that is yes, absolutely. Other questions? Let's see, we have another question about diesel fuel prices and how they influence the future of diesel fuel. That's an important question. One of the concerns that has been raised in the past is the relative high price of diesel fuel over gasoline and what that might do to discourage consumers from buying more diesel cars. And one of our observations is that over the last 3 years particularly, during actually the period of our study, we have seen the highest absolute diesel retail price. We have seen the highest differential between diesel and regular gasoline price. And we have also seen, periods of constrained credit and access to financing for vehicles, and generally the recessionary period. And even in the face of all that, I think what we just presented here today is a 30% increase in the market share for clean diesels. And so we would believe that diesel fuel prices are but one factor as consumers consider an investment in a new technology, fuel-efficient technology vehicle. And it's not the only consideration. We have to believe that factors such as the long driving range of diesels and the comparatively long-term value and total cost of ownership advantages of the diesel also are weighing on consumer decisions. Let's see, we have a question here. Any problems with finding enough diesel techs to keep up with growing demand? A good question. I think we've seen some recent reports that the diesel technology institutes that train diesel mechanics are placing all of their students without any kinds of problems whatsoever. So we know that diesel techs are able to find jobs, and those coming out of the technical and trade programs are being gobbled up pretty quickly. I would expect that there's pockets of the U.S. that are finding shortages with qualified technicians, and particularly as we see the market grow for diesel vehicles, the need to have certified clean diesel technicians is going to increase. So we'll keep tabs on that as well. Let's see, another question. Are we finding a lot of competitor price gouging of diesel due to the new high demand? I don't think we have any perspective, any view on that. Don't have any particular comment, response to that question. Let's see, what is the outlook for electric cars going forward? As I indicated, our research did not look at the market shares for other technologies because of their very low penetration. I think there is information available that's been published on that, and part of the fuel economy mandate that the President has put forward requires a certain percentage of electric vehicles in the years to come. So I couldn't speak specifically to it, but other resources are available that could. Let's see, another question. With the U.S. exporting record amounts of diesel due to cheap supplies at home, would lifting the crude export ban help close the gap between gasoline and diesel fuel? This is an important question. I think there's a couple of observations here. First of all, there is a good number of additional barrels a day of refining capacity coming online in the next couple of years, specifically for the production of high-quality distillate fuels, including diesel, jet fuel, and other middle distillate fuels. So we would expect that some additional refining capacity here in the U.S. Would provide some additional supply into the global marketplace, and perhaps that may help close the gap between gas and diesel. As for lifting the export ban, it would be hard to say whether that would have a dramatic impact or not. Certainly diesel fuel is a highly valued commodity on the global market, and that has been a key player in driving up diesel fuel prices in the last couple of years. So there is a sense there that there's going to be continued demand for diesel around the world as industrialized countries continue to use more construction and farming equipment, power generation, and other needs for diesel. So certainly the fuel question is one that continues to be relevant going forward. Let's see, question here. Health concerns with diesel still arise in press in Europe. What should be known about modern clean diesel that addresses those concerns? The new generation of clean diesel vehicles in the U.S. meets all the same standards as gasoline from an emissions perspective. And what we're finding is that any of the health concerns that have been raised in other parts of the country, and you specifically mentioned Europe, were really based on older generations of technology, 5, 10, 15 years old technology that is not meeting the newest emission standards. And in other parts of the world, not having access to clean diesel fuel is a barrier to being able to take advantage of the full range of benefits from the new clean diesel engines and vehicles. So while one of the quickest solutions here is to have cleaner diesel fuel on a much broader global basis, but concerns that have been raised relative to emissions and air pollution in other parts of the world like London and France and pointing to diesel cars particularly are looking at older technology in some cases, and also in some cases those are only looking at a narrow portion of the air pollution inventory. In fact, the United Nations European Commission on Economics recently issued an 80-page report that pretty clearly identifies the range of issues relative to emissions and air pollution in Europe, and diesel is identified only as one of those sources and not the primary source of concern. Let's see. Question, I don't hear much about biodiesel anymore. What's the status of supply and demand? As you know, biodiesel is a fuel that is produced in the U.S. right now, primarily from soybeans, and when blended into diesel fuel, we're looking at percentages of up to about 5% that is permissible in most clean diesel passenger cars. Pickup trucks are good for up to 20% blend. In most of those, the Chevy Cruze is the exception on the car side. It also is certified up to a B20 blend. So the vehicles that are on the road and the new ones being produced are certainly capable of utilizing high-quality renewable biodiesel fuels. The industry produced over 1 billion gallons last year, and right now there's quite a bit of discussion about the renewable fuel mandate and what the volumes will be for the future. And I think there's a lot of interest in maintaining the volumes that the industry has met in past years, if not growing those as additional capacity comes online. I think biodiesel availability is still depends on where you are. Some states have more availability than others, and depends on again where you're operating and what kind of vehicle and the blend that you can use. But biodiesel presents some important aspects of the future for clean diesel in terms of sustainability and being able to use higher blends of diesel fuel as a low carbon fuel is already being looked at in California and other places. So we see that as helping and contributing to the sustainability of diesel on a long-term basis. Other questions? Let's see, I think we may have an answer to, I'm sorry, we're still working on that first question. What percentage of total diesel cars registered were clean diesel? What percentage were hybrid and what percentage combined? I think the actual percentages of overall vehicles are relatively small. On a percentage basis, diesels, including heavy-duty pickup trucks, made up just under 3% of all registrations last year. Hybrids, we'll get that number for you. Another question here, also, do you see diesels competing directly with hybrids? Excellent question. Certainly there is in the minds of the consumer, there are choices to be made when entering the showroom, and there are more choices than ever before. And I think what we're finding is that folks are becoming much more familiar with hybrid technology. It's been out a little bit longer. It's certainly gotten more attention from the media, and there are many more choices, as I've pointed out today. That has resulted in, I think, a much more rapid uptake from consumers. But I think we're also seeing now that folks are getting a bit more sophisticated about their understanding of these vehicles. For example, knowing that a hybrid vehicle is a very efficient vehicle, particularly when optimized with the driving pattern of stop and go in the city, it will deliver very high mileage, whereas on the open road operating substantially at highway speeds, it may deliver less than posted mileage. And there have been some concerns raised about that and some adjustments made to window stickers and stuff, sort of materials like that from manufacturers to reflect a more realistic expectation for consumers about fuel economy from hybrids. We don't necessarily see that from diesels. We typically find consumers doing better than window sticker posted mileage. So there certainly is a competition there, but I think at the end of the day, there are going to be many choices, and each consumer has to pick the right one for them based on their lifestyle, their driving needs, and their own economics. And so, that's why we see concentrations of certain kinds of vehicles in certain places. You might predict that urban areas that are investing a lot in electric vehicle infrastructure, for example, would have a higher preponderance of electric vehicles than Midwestern states or less densely populated areas where there are typically longer driving distances. So there are many choices for consumers, and diesels are ones that are definitely competitive with hybrids today. And some recent total cost of ownership analysis that was completed by the University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute last year proved that out, that depending on the model, the diesels can come out ahead or at least as good as hybrids in total cost of ownership. Let's see, getting back to that very first question, I understand that among all vehicles, diesels are about 2.8% of total registrations, and hybrids are 1.15%. Question, is there a generally agreed upon definition of clean diesel? So we'll take that one first. Clean diesel is, I think, a continuum of advancements in technology. I think the demarcation point is with the introduction of ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel in the U.S. back in 2007, and diesel cars, trucks, SUVs, and other machines and equipment as well that were designed and built since that time have been designed and optimized around the clean diesel system. And the ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel enables that system to exist. That's advanced emissions controls, it's high pressure fuel injection technology, it's advanced turbocharging. All of those technologies really come together to be the clean diesel system, the engine part, the fuel part, and then the emissions control part. But let's be clear that clean diesel is really the state of all diesel vehicles on the road today, that I should say all the new generation vehicles, and certainly the ones that are the subject of our study here. The second part of that question, in regard to the top 10 states for combined diesel hybrid passenger vehicle registrations, are there any common factors that would explain why they are at the top? So this is the Texas, California, Florida arrangement. I think you know, a couple of things there. That listing reflects quite a dominance from the heavy-duty clean diesel pickup truck population. As we've noted at the outset, there's about 7 million diesel vehicles registered compared to just about 2 million hybrid vehicles, 2.8, excuse me, hybrid vehicles registered. So the diesel pickup trucks have a heavy influence in that ranking of the top 3 particularly. And you know, I think there's the population bases in California and Texas are on the larger side, so that would reflect maybe perhaps some of that as well. We did not look at specific other demographic factors, I should say, in this, so that's really just an anecdotal comment. Question, what is the price premium on average of a clean diesel compared to a gasoline vehicle? That's very vehicle specific, as you might expect. I would say that on average, $1,500 to $2,000 would be a good kind of general number. Some models, it's a bit more than that, and the pickup trucks, it is quite a bit more than that, but that reflects a more robust powertrain for towing and other things. So the price premium at the heavy-duty pickup truck point is probably closer to $6,000 to $8,000 premium, but for passenger vehicles, SUVs, cars, it's more in the $1,500 to $2,000 range. Yes. Let's see, we're seeking a confirmation here that the 2.8 for diesel and 1.15% for hybrids is overall market penetration for U.S. Sales in 2013, and I believe that's correct. Steve, is that right?
It's total registrations from
okay.
2012 to 2013, not sales.
Right, that's correct. This is registration data. This is not just sales data. These are all vehicles that are registered to operate. Additional questions? We have a question here. What are your thoughts on taxing alternative fueling options, a higher percentage in order to help fund the Highway Trust Fund? Let's see. As you may know, diesel fuel is currently taxed at a rate of 6 cents a gallon more than gasoline. And this has been a case since the early 90s when some agreements were made with the trucking industry to contribute additional funding to the Highway Trust Fund to account for the increased damage done by 18-wheelers to the nation's road network. So diesel passenger vehicles and light trucks and SUVs have in many ways been a victim of circumstance, if you will, in terms of fuel taxation. So there's a 6 cent a gallon premium on diesel at the federal level, and then I believe there's about 15 states that have an additional state diesel fuel tax that is higher than the state gasoline tax. So depending on where you are, you could be, getting hit twice for paying more in fuel taxes. In terms of what are the options, I think, we are currently taxing a more energy efficient fuel at a higher level, and that seems to be backwards for many people, including my own personal view on that. I think at the very least there needs to be some equity and fairness established that you know, at the very least we're not taxing diesel for passenger vehicles more than we're taxing gasoline for passenger vehicles. How we get there, I think, is a much more complicated question, but you know, it's clear that different funding mechanisms are being considered by the Congress and states as efforts to make up the shortfall in the Highway Trust Fund. Our hope is that folks recognize the inherent energy efficiency of diesel and see that as a guide for establishing future tax policy. Let's see, a question here. How do you define high mileage vehicles in terms of miles per gallon? I don't think there is a standard definition for that. I think that is pretty much everyone's own personal interpretation of what is a high mileage vehicle. You know, we have a full range of vehicles today that are 30%, on average 30% better than their gasoline counterparts, the diesel vehicles. There are some diesel vehicles that are substantially better than that, and a few that might be just slightly under that. But by and large, you can consistently look at 30% as kind of the average fuel efficiency advantage that you would get with a clean diesel over a gasoline. Question: What are your thoughts on extending the gas guzzler tax to trucks, SUVs, and vans? I've heard this mentioned recently because as it stands today, the tax does very little to raise money. I guess we have not formed any specific thoughts or opinions on that. I think, you know, it's a question probably not just specific to clean diesel, but to really gasoline and other technologies that are used in those vehicles. Any additional questions from the group? Let's see, we have a question. Is the 2.8% diesel share and 1.15% hybrid share relative to total vehicle registrations or passenger car registrations? That is total vehicle registrations. That includes cars, SUVs, light trucks, heavy-duty pickup trucks as well. Well, just a few concluding thoughts here. We want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today, and we'll have Kristen will come back here with a statement about how you can get materials from today's event, and we're happy to continue to answer questions offline. This is a press conference, so we have responded to every question that we've seen, and apologize that we couldn't use a more standard audio system to be able to do that. We are looking at the future for clean diesel being very bright, and one of the forecasts we've seen recently is looking at a 10% market share by 2020. So that's growing quite a bit from today's about 2.8% of all vehicles that we've seen. Pickup trucks are at 10.6% of all pickup trucks are diesel powered today. So getting to 10% diesels by 2020 is a definite possibility with the growing number of choices coming out and increasing interest in manufacturers in providing more diesel options for consumers. We hope to come back next year with numbers that are even more robust than today. So with that, let me thank you again. And Kristen, final words on access to materials.
Thank you for joining us today. The full press release from the press conference, as well as all of our graphics, are available on dieselforum.org/top10, and you can access those now. This presentation, as well as the recorded press conference, will be available shortly on that site as well, so you can feel free to access them there. And if you need anything additional, you can email us at the Diesel Forum, and we'll get you additional materials that you need. Thank you for joining us.